Welcome to AP Biology. I'm Dr. Ian Brauner. I'm the Science Department Chair and obviously also the AP Biology teacher. Many of you know me already. Many of your children I've taught before. And so it's been a great year so far. And even for the distance learners, because luckily I have good relationships with all of them, it's I think been a pretty productive year so far. So I just want to go through some class expectations. Obviously, completing work in a timely manner is important, but your student wouldn't be in this class if they hadn't already demonstrated that ability. One thing I do want to talk about, though, is using resources. This is a college level class, and one thing that students do struggle with a little bit, or at least maybe aren't quite expecting if they haven't had an AP Science before, is that like in college, you might only see your professor 3 times a week or sometimes even just 2 times a week. A lot more of the learning has to be independent. And so this is also a college course. And so there is the expectation that they will be learning more of the material on their own. Now, having said that, I do provide a lot of resources and obviously make myself available to help them in any way they need it. But a lot of learning by necessity has to happen outside of the classroom. In the classroom, whether they're online or in the class, I do expect them to have active participation. But again, your student wouldn't be in this class if they hadn't already demonstrated that. And I will say the kids that are online in particular are doing a great job of participating. And obviously seeking help, which is something I'm going to talk about right now. So if you're a parent, you can contact me through email. I recommend that over Blackbaud just because I have email notifications on my phone, and so I'll get it right away, whereas Blackbaud, I may be more of a delay. Students can obviously also contact me through email, but I've been using Teams a lot for chat messaging and then obviously video calls. I will say with video calls that I'm more than willing to have video calls at times that work with your students' time zone and really doing my best to try to work around that. My grading policy is pretty straightforward. 80% test, 20% homework. Mostly everything is graded because, again, it gets back to this idea that the learning process is really both in and out, and it's important that the kids be doing their best and really giving their full effort to the homework. Now, 80% is important in this case for the test because, again, we're preparing them for the AP exam, and the tests are really made up of old AP questions, both multiple choice and free response, which would be like short sentences or essays. And then homework is usually either more AP questions on the AP Classroom or using the textbook online Mastering Biology website that has really great resources, and I really like it a lot. One thing I really do like about it, getting at this idea of it being a learning thing, is that the website has multiple choice questions, but they're a little bit more formative in the sense that you can ask for guesses or hints rather, and then if you get it wrong, it gives you another chance, and then it grades it according to the number of tries. So it really is a great way for the kids to be learning things and to be covering that material in a way that they really know whether or not they're getting it and getting that immediate feedback. The one thing I will mention is that the Mastering Biology website for the textbook is great. It does have a link to an online textbook. However, I do recommend, and I've said this to the students several times, but there are lots of different versions of this Campbell textbook. As long as you get the AP version, it doesn't really matter. So you can usually pick up older editions for less than 20 bucks on Amazon. And I think a lot of students find that really helpful. Again, it's not required. And part of the reason why I don't require it is it's not very practical for me to I would have to recommend a specific edition, and it doesn't really matter, and it would increase the cost. So I just will say now that, if you haven't gotten an older edition of the Campbell AP Biology, I really recommend it, and it would be really helpful. I'm guessing most of the students who think it will help them have already done it, because I've mentioned it several times. All right. So resources, I do make a lot of resources available for the students, as I said before, because they need to be doing a lot of the learning on their own. So these resources would be summaries that I write that are really meant to be more holistic than, I say, a summary at the end of the textbook, which would be much more sort of a linear, literal summary of the text or the chapter. I try to write summaries that really kind of try to pull everything together and really hammer on things that I know students struggle with, and specific things that they struggle with, and try to help them with that, or things that I know that the AP exam really emphasizes, and be very upfront about, like, this is something you really need to know, because this is something that they're going to ask a lot of questions about, and this is how they're going to ask it. And quite frankly, I'll even say this is often how they try to trick you. Or this is, whatever the case may be. Again, I'm trying to be as helpful to the students as I can be. This stuff is challenging. It's a lot of material. There's no reason to make it any harder than it needs to be. So I try to make it as easy as it needs to be, or it can be, rather. So speaking of the AP curriculum, there are 8 units. If you had taken AP biology in high school yourself, or have an older child that took AP biology several years ago, this would look very different. They've updated the curriculum starting last year. They took out anatomy and physiology and a lot of the plant anatomy and physiology. It's not that that stuff's not important, but if you're teaching an introductory course, even an introductory college course in biology, you really got to focus on the cell biology, and there's no realistic way you can do that in a single year. No college course does it, and it's not realistic that the AP course does it, which was part of the problem with AP biology for a number of years. Is it was actually more material that they tried to cover than any college actually tried to cover, and so it was really, quite frankly, a mess. So this new curriculum is much better. I really like it. I recently had the opportunity to work with a guy who was one of the main authors of the AP revision, and we became fast friends and effective collaborators, because essentially they changed AP biology to exactly the same way I've been teaching it for the last 20 years, at least biology. And so I like the new curriculum a lot. One of the big changes is that it really focuses more about the process and about the concepts. And so a lot of the questions are much more based on an experiment that you then have to interpret and relate that to a biological concept. And so this also shows about the percentage time. We end with natural selection and ecology, because those are really great sort of summary concepts that use all these concepts. Natural selection is the unifying concept of biology, and so you can't understand natural selection without understanding all of this stuff, and so it acts as a great review. And the same thing could be said of ecology. So this is just a sample question, as I was referring to before, but a typical AP biology question would be, they would show you this graph, and then you'd have to explain osmosis and explain various different concepts related to osmosis based on the data that's being demonstrated in this graph. So in closing, I just wanted to say I really enjoyed having all of your children in my class. I knew I would. I knew all of them really well, and I was really excited to have them in class. If you have any questions for me, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, and I look forward to the day that we can be together here on campus.